Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing tonight? Let's see.
So I personally have been.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing tonight? Let's see who is joining us tonight. Let's see who's going to join us tonight. Hey, Nicole. How are you? Thanks for coming through. So good to see you on here. Oh, my colleagues are on now, making me all nervous and things. But anyway, we're going to have a good discussion, hopefully. Feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts or ideas or comments on anything that I have to say. I miss you too. We're going to have to get together soon. Hello, Israel Psychotherapy. Thanks for coming through. So glad that you have chosen to jump in on my little live tonight. Instagram is so full of people doing lives because we can't really see each other in person. And so I always think it really nice when people jump in to join us. We have a lot of psychotherapists on tonight. I hope I say the right thing. You guys are making me all nervous, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So tonight, I want to talk about the messy muddle of trying to find psychotherapy support or counseling support, psychiatry support. Nobody knows what's going on. Let me just get rid of my music. As a mother who is now working from home, I have two little ones running around my home, so you will forgive me, I hope, if you hear yelling, screaming, laughter coming from the other side. This is just my life now. So thanks, Nicole, for telling me that I got this. I appreciate that. So as a psychotherapist, people call me often wanting for some kind of mental health support. People have been warming up more to the idea of accessing therapy, getting support for their mental health. It's no longer taboo to talk about it, but you know, there's still a little bit of stigma. So it's one of the reasons why I do afterthoughts. Welcome, welcome. I am hoping that just through talking about this stuff, I'll play my little part in trying to reduce the stigma that exists around mental health and talking about it. So what happens when your doctor says that you have anxiety and you need to see someone? Who is that someone? Who should that someone be? Sometimes when people call me, they get halfway through their explanation before I realize, hold on, you need a psychiatrist, not me. And then they'll say, but your profile says psychotherapy. I thought that was the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. So I wanted to sort of break down what we do and what we cost and all that stuff, because you know, I know because I'm in the game, but if you're a consumer, you're not in the game, you're just on the outside looking in, then you're just confused. So let's figure it out together. So the first piece that you need is who does what. So let's break that down a little bit. So a social worker is someone who has training in one of the helping professions, which is social work. They specialize in managing the social, when I say social, I don't mean like talking to each other, but the ins and outs of life, like food support, housing support, financial support. If you've lost your job and you're out of money, social workers can help you fill out the forms, help you figure out that you need to call Ontario Works. I live in the province of Ontario. To get some social assistance. They can help you find the right forms. They can help you figure out what you're eligible for. They can advocate for you. They can tell you where the nearest food banks are. Social workers are awesome. I'm a little biased. I am a social worker. A social worker who practices psychotherapy does talk therapy, which is a little bit different. They have training and expertise in helping you manage anxiety, depression, more serious mental health issues, obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, bipolar disorder, different kinds of personality disorders. And those social workers usually have a master's degree or what's called an MSW, which is a master's in social work. And in Ontario, the social workers are, hey Bailey, thanks for joining us. We're just talking about managing the mess around accessing mental health support. So, where am I? Yes, so in Ontario, the social workers are regulated by the College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. And due to our experience, clinical social workers or social workers that practice psychotherapy can usually eyeball whether or not a person has anxiety or depression or OCD or an eating disorder, ADHD, or even autism, but we're not, it's not within our scope of practice to diagnose. So you will not likely find a social worker psychotherapist who says, well, I now diagnose you with blah, 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 blah. That is not within our scope of practice, but you better believe that with the right experience, we can probably look at you from across the room and go, yep, I think that's what's going on there. Now, a registered psychotherapist, and I think it's important for me to talk about the two, because often people call me and they're confused. A registered psychotherapist also provides talk therapy. They're not a social worker. They've gone to school to study also clinical work, but not social work. And they are registered with the, where do I have that? They're registered with the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario, and they also provide talk therapy. They will let you know how to manage same things. So mental health issues, depression, anxiety, family relationships, family counseling, couple therapy, you name it, they will help you manage that, and so do social workers. Again, registered psychotherapists, because of their experience, can have an idea of what it is that you're dealing with, but they also do not diagnose. But more on that later. Psychologists are PhD graduates who have a doctor's of psychology. Nicole, you let me know if I'm getting anything wrong. They have been trained in assessing or doing very detailed testing to help you understand how your brain works. So, you know, because of that, they're able to diagnose things like ADHD, autism, and certain learning disorders. They will use terms like working memory and executive functioning, and they will, after their assessment, they'll produce a full report, and they will walk you through it and help you figure out what's going on there. On top of that, many psychologists also provide talk therapy. But the bulk of their work, as far as I'm aware, in my experience, is the assessment piece, because that's usually what people call them looking for. They also provide talk therapy, and they diagnose, but psychologists do not prescribe medication. Let's see. Now, psychiatrists are medical doctors. They've been to medical school, and they specialize in your brain. They do lots of research on brain chemistry, but they also specialize in diagnosing and treating mental health issues with medication. They're the ones who write the prescriptions specifically for brain chemistry, how your brain works. Your family doctor can refer you to a psychiatrist if they feel uncomfortable or like it's outside of their wheelhouse to manage the depth of your mental health issues. There are some family physicians who are really great at this, and they will write you the prescription and you'll stick with them. But some family physicians will refer you to a psychiatrist in the community, and the psychiatrist will write your prescription, will follow your mental health journey, will figure out when to lower the dose, when to increase the dose, when to change it from one prescription to the next, which prescriptions don't get along, and to help you manage that. Now, sometimes a client will come to me and they will have major depression. They have serious trouble getting out of bed. And that's when I know that my talk therapy will only go so far. And I will say to them, have you been to see your doctor? Is your doctor able to refer you to a psychiatrist? Because in my experience, people who have persistent and severe mental health issues do the best. Hey, Darisha, thanks for coming through. We're just talking about managing mental health and how best to do that. So those people who have persistent and pervasive mental health issues, I see that they do their best when they access talk therapy and they're taking their medication. I'm not a fitness instructor, but similarly, fitness instructors will say something like diet and exercise. Diet will only get you so far, exercise will only get you so far. But the combination of the two is a really great recipe. And so I found the same to be true for talk therapy or counseling and medication for when there are persistent and significant mental health issues. So now, what's the next thing? So the first thing was who does what. The second thing is what does my benefits cover? That's the other thing that I have found people struggle with when they come to see me. So they'll call me and they'll say, well, you know, I am having these symptoms of anxiety, I'm having panic attacks and so on, and I'm looking to book an appointment. Perfect, I'm happy to book that appointment, but I always say to them, if you have benefits, you need to find out what your benefits cover. And so they'll say, okay, they want to book the appointment, and I'll say to them, hold off first, check your benefit package, see what they cover. And then they'll come back to me and they'll say, what's your designation again? And I'll say social work. I'm an MSW social worker. And they'll say, well, my benefits here says it only covers RP or registered psychotherapist. Isn't that what you do? And I will have to say, well, we do the same work, but I'm not a registered psychotherapist. So if you are looking for mental health support and you have benefits, always, always, always go looking for your benefit paperwork or call your benefits. Have them explain to you, check the website, find out what it is that you're covered for. Some benefit packages only cover social work. Some benefit packages only cover registered psychotherapy. Some benefit packages only cover psychology. There are a few that have walked into 2020 and are now covering all of it, which I am so happy to hear, because sometimes a parent will come to me and they will say, these are the things that my child is exhibiting, and I'll have a discussion with the parent and work with the child for a few sessions, and then I'll say, you know what, I think it would be really great if you went and got a psychoeducational assessment, which is what is provided by a psychologist. This way we'll know exactly what we're working with. Then you come back to me, and then we can move forward. It just helps to inform my work. It helps the parent understand what it is that they're dealing with the child, and then they can also take the report to the school and try to implement some of the recommendations that the psychologist has made. So always double check what your benefits cover, because that will sometimes decide whether or not you access therapy. Because to be honest, guys, talk therapy is not cheap, and sometimes people can only access it if their benefits cover something. If someone comes to me and says, well, I've double checked and my benefits only cover registered psychotherapy, I'm happy to refer them to people in the community that I know who practice that. In the office where I practice, I have a number of colleagues who are registered psychotherapists, so sometimes we refer to each other or we refer out into the community. So what does it all cost? That's the third piece. So the first piece was who does what. The second piece of the puzzle is what does my benefits cover, and the third piece of the puzzle is what does it all cost. Again, it's not cheap. Psychiatrists, thank goodness, are covered by the province. So you just need your Ontario Health Card when you get referred to see a psychiatrist. You will probably get put on a wait list because psychiatrists are not, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not a lot of them in the community, sorry. I had a brain freeze for a minute. So there are not a lot of them in the community. So you might get put on a wait list, but when you get to see a psychiatrist, that will be a good thing. And they're covered by Ontario, so you don't have to worry. That's free. Now, in terms of psychologists, they have a doctorate in psychology. They offer the assessments, they can diagnose, and so they cost a little bit more. Psychoeducational assessments, those are big jobs. Sometimes they take 2-3 visits, and they can range anywhere from $1,300 to $2,000 to $2,200. Nicole, if you're still on here, maybe you can chime in on that. But Hello, Glorian. Hello, hello, hello. I find that psychologists are a little bit more expensive, but again, many benefit packages cover the cost of psychology. So hopefully, if you have benefits, that's something that you can access. Social workers, psychotherapists, again, that's not cheap. Yes, anywhere, thanks, Nicole, anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000, right? So if you are accessing talk therapy, private talk therapy from a psychotherapist or a registered psychotherapist, those fees can range anywhere from $100 to maybe $160 per session. I know that many psychotherapists charge more for family therapy and couple therapy because you're no longer just working with one person's issues. It takes a lot more mental awareness to manage that dynamic in the room, especially if we're doing family therapy. Couple therapy, when people are trying to figure out whether or not they should stay or they should go, that takes a lot of mental energy as well. It takes a lot of preparation. And so those sessions are sometimes a little bit more costly. There are many psychotherapists that offer a sliding scale. And so they might be able to help mitigate the costs. Some of us don't, and the fee is what it is. So, you know, that's just the cost, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I promised that I would come on here and dish it, so this is what it is. So the fourth portion of this puzzle is, are there any cheaper options? Hi, Sophia, come on in. We were just talking about the mental health puzzle and how it's hard to figure out what goes where, you know, which piece of the puzzle goes where, how do we find what we need? So the fourth piece of this puzzle is, are there any cheaper options? Yes, therapy is expensive, and, you know, it can sometimes create a demarcation in terms of the haves and the have-nots. It provides marginalization. There are some people in the community who can access therapy and some people who can't, and it feels like it's not fair. But thankfully, there are cheaper options. You don't have to plunk out $150 every time you need a session. There are many family service organizations in the community that offer therapy, and many of them are on a sliding scale. So if you're not earning anything, you don't have to pay anything. You pay less depending on whether or not you have a dependent or two at home. If you're working part-time, they may just ask you what it is that you're earning, and it will reduce how much you have to pay. Some places will only charge you, depending on your income, the ceiling is $90 or $100, and sometimes you'll pay $10, sometimes you'll pay nothing, just depending on what your circumstance is. If you're a student, if you're in university, then you don't have to pay anything. Some community centers offer free therapy or therapy on a sliding scale, paying very, very minimal. And quite often these agencies will say, pay us what you have, and if you have nothing, we won't charge you anything for it, which is amazing. The only difficulty is that with many of these community agencies, you are limited with how many sessions you're available to access. So I know I used to work for an agency where the limit was 12 sessions. There were times when we could advocate for 18, but the challenge is that there were so many people trying to access service that sometimes it got limited to 12 sessions. Now that's a problem. I will admit it's difficult. Some children's mental health agencies and schools provide some free therapy, but there are wait lists. So that's where I was going. Yes, children's mental health agencies provide free therapy. But the wait list, guys, I don't know where some of you live, but the wait list in Ontario is quite lengthy for free therapy. When you call an agency, you may be told that your child who is exhibiting violent behaviors and really needs therapy yesterday will have to wait 2 years before they can see someone. You know, I've had parents on the phone cry because I'm having to tell them when I was working in an agency that their wait is 18 months. So that's the reality of life, and it is not, it's not pretty. It really does create marginalization. People who can afford therapy get therapy. People who can't afford therapy don't get therapy. And it's, I'm really hoping that this starts to change. Because the reality of life is that we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. And sometimes a child might slip, or you might fall on the ice and you might break your leg. And there are times when life presents us challenges and our brains don't fire the way they should. Sometimes we end up with debilitating depression or crippling anxiety, eating disorders, personality disorders, just from stress in life. And we need supports. And for someone to know that, for someone to be told that they have to wait a year, 6 months, a year and a half for supports, it's crazy. It is just like the autism wait list, Sophia, and it's horrendous and it's wrong. I'll be the first person to admit that it's wrong, but I wanted to come on here to let you guys know what the system is like. So I just want to recap in terms of who does what. Social workers in the community who do not practice psychotherapy or clinical social work, they will help you access resources in the community. So forms to complete, accessing food banks, financial supports in the community, advocacy. They can tell you where to go to access some of these mental health services if they don't provide it. Psychotherapy social workers or clinical social workers are trained in treating anxiety, depression, marital issues, relationship issues, self-esteem, OCD, family therapy, couple therapy, all of that, you name it. We will provide therapy to children, seniors, adults, teenagers. Not all of us work with every group, but some of us do. Then there are registered psychotherapists who provide the same kind of talk therapy as social workers, only the designation is different. The social workers who provide clinical talk therapy are MSW social workers, and the registered psychotherapists are exactly that, registered psychotherapists, and their designation is RP for registered psychotherapy. They're governed by different colleges and different benefit providers cover differently. Psychologists provide mental health assessment, and they also provide talk therapy, and because they do assessment, they also diagnose, but they do not write prescriptions. Social workers and RPs do not diagnose or write prescriptions. And then there are psychiatrists who are doctors. Great job putting this necessary information out there. Thank you. I just thought it was necessary for people to know. Psychiatrists are medical doctors. They've been to medical school. They know the ins and outs of how the brain is wired. They do a lot of research into brain chemistry, and they provide, they write prescriptions, they do assessments, and they diagnose. Their assessment that they do is a little bit different from the assessment that the psychologists do. Nicole says it can also be helpful to ask registered psychotherapists about their training and experience because it can vary a lot. Yes. If you feel comfortable talking to, if your support provider is a registered psychotherapist, ask them what their expertise is in. Ask them what they're trained in. There are some registered psychotherapists who have degrees in education. Some have degrees in clinical counseling. Some have degrees in psychology. So by all means, double check with them to find out what their areas of expertise is. So again, psychiatrists can diagnose, psychiatrists will write prescriptions, they will monitor your mental health, see how you're doing. Are your symptoms getting worse or are they getting better? Do I need to reduce the prescription or increase it? The next point was, what do my benefits cover? If you are looking into therapy or any kind of talk therapy support, I would always ask people to check. If you have benefits, always check to see what benefits cover, because sometimes the benefit coverage is different. Some will cover registered psychotherapists, some will only cover social work, some will only cover psychology. Always check to see, because therapy is not cheap, guys. Also, psychiatrists are covered by Ontario's OHIP insurance plan, Ontario's health insurance plan, also known as OHIP. You just need to present your OHIP card because you're a doctor, and you'll get free support through psychiatrists. What does it all cost? Psychologists are usually the most pricey. A psychoeducational assessment can vary between $1,000 to $3,000 per assessment, and the talk therapy that they provide can cost anywhere between $180 to maybe $250 or $280 per session. Registered psychotherapists and social worker psychotherapists, their sessions can range anywhere between 100 to generally like 180 per session. If you're doing family therapy or couples therapy, it can go up to as high as maybe 200 or 220 per session, just because there are more minds in the room to manage, and it takes a lot more out of the therapist to provide that kind of support. What are the cheaper options? Call your community center, any girls network that you might have in the community, family services organizations, any kind of community service. Always call any kind of community health center. They often provide counseling for free. Children's mental health agencies provide counseling for free. Talk to your doctor if you're looking for free supports. They should have some pamphlets around what's available for free in the area. Usually, if it's free, there's a wait list, so just double check what those wait lists are. Sometimes they can range from 6 weeks to 6 months to 2 years. It can really vary depending on the agency. So guys, hang in there. If you find a practitioner and it's too much, inquire whether or not there's a sliding scale. And if there isn't and you cannot afford it, do not be shy to say, I can't afford this, I have to look for someone that I can afford. Or do not be shy to say, I have to find someone who has a sliding scale. I will admit that I don't have a sliding scale because that's just the nature of my business, but I'm happy to refer to someone who does have a sliding scale. Because of what's going on with COVID, I have, to be honest with you, reduced my fees just a smidge because people have lost their jobs and therapy is a luxury right now. It isn't about my bottom line, really. I've lost clients and that's fine. I count myself blessed to be in a situation where my home is still running, right? But there are many people who don't know what food for tomorrow is going to look like. So I totally get it. If you need free therapy, don't be shy to say, I can't afford your expensive fee. I need to find something. That's what someone in the community, I know, Vivian, she calls it free 99. Don't be shy to go search for your free 99. I'm sure it's out there. You may have to wait a little bit, but those therapists are just as skilled. Nicole says, all disciplines should be able to help with mental health issues and link you with the appropriate discipline for you. So don't be afraid to reach out if you're not sure who to go to, by all means. And if you're shy, if you're feeling stuck, hit me up. Jump into my DM and ask a question or two. Or look me up on Psychology Today. My name is Roxanne Francis. Don't be shy to give me a call and say, listen, I'm not sure. I didn't quite understand this. Can you help me? I'll be happy to help you if I can. I'm not sure if anyone's out here who has any questions about mental health. You're more than welcome to throw a question out there and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Just wondering how you guys are doing. This is a really strange time and it's taxing everyone's mental health. So I thought I would just come on here and provide some tools around how to access those pieces of the puzzle that really seem to be missing when people need mental health supports. It's like groping around in the dark because they just tell you find somebody and they don't tell you how to find somebody. They don't tell you how much it costs. They don't tell you you're welcome, Jerisha, always a pleasure. They don't tell you how much it costs. They don't tell you who does what. And people are dumbfounded. They just don't know what to do. And so I just thought I'd come on here and share what I know. Again, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to send me a message in my DM and I'd be happy to help you if I can. If I can't help you, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. Thank you so much for joining. Natasha, you just jumped in. We are just wrapping up, but you can definitely catch it on the replay. My replay is going to be up for the next 24 hours, and I will see if I can put this also on my IGTV. If you have any questions about mental health, by all means, you can always send me a question in my DM. And as always, I will be here every Wednesday at 8 with my thoughts at the end of my therapy day, with what I call afterthought. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really, really, really don't take it for granted that you chose to spend your time with me. Thanks again, and you take care of your mental health. Cheers. Bye.
So I personally have been feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the amount